Welcome to The Path to Leadership, a podcast-style event where trailblazers share their journeys from humble beginnings to powerful positions. This inspiring and motivational conversation series is designed for anyone dreaming of a leadership role, seeking mentorship, or craving insight on how to forge their own path. Whether you're just getting started or ready to rise, this event will educate, empower, and energize your goals. Your path to leadership starts with a warm welcome to Judith Watson, CEO of Westchester Community Health Center.
Hi.
Hello there, Michelle.
It's so nice to see you.
Oh, it's wonderful to see you also.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And I know you're so busy, so this really does mean a lot to me. I want to know a little bit, before we get into talking about you and your background, if you can share with the listeners a little bit about Westchester Community Health Center.
All right, Michelle. So, Westchester Community Health Center is a federally qualified health center, of which there are over 1,500 in the United States, 75 in New York alone, each with multiple sites. So Westchester Community Health Center is one with 9 sites located in the poverty pockets of Westchester County, and so we're in Mount Vernon, in Greenburgh, in Yonkers, and we have a mobile unit that gets deployed. We have school-based health centers. And what we do is provide health care regardless of ability to pay. And though it may seem like a dirty word today, regardless of immigration status.
I know, it hurts my heart, like just seeing what's going on. And it just makes the work that you and your team are doing that much more important. So thank you for doing that, because it could be rewarding, but sometimes it could be seen as a thankless job. So you are really making a difference to people's lives, and a lot of people feel that. So thank
you so much.
Yeah.
You know, we were born out of the civil rights movement, and we were established for the purpose of serving as the safety net for those who do not have insurance and in need of health care. And so that's our mission.
Wow.
For 51 years.
Wow.
And hopefully well into the next 51 years and beyond that.
That's amazing. I didn't know that it had been around for so long.
Yes.
And that was one of the ways that it came about, was because of the civil rights movement.
Yes.
That's so important.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing that. So, talking a little bit about you, I like to go back to little Judith. And I like doing that because I feel like our childhood experiences tend to shape who we are and who we become as an adult. So I'd love to learn a little bit about young Judith. Are you originally from Westchester?
I am not. And so I was born in Jamaica and migrated here at age 7, so it's been a little while, and migrated to White Plains. And with an exception of the 3 years that I was in the United States Army and lived in Hawaii, I served in Hawaii, I've lived in White Plains for all of these years. I now reside in North White Plains, not too far from where I was raised and where my mom still resides.
Wow. What was that like, coming here at an age old enough that you recognize what's happening, but young enough that you're still forming who you are?
Here's why I love that question, Michelle. I love that question because it wasn't like it is today. You know, there weren't a lot of Jamaicans in White Plains. Most Jamaicans migrated toward Brooklyn and the Bronx and here in Mount Vernon where we're sitting. Not so many in White Plains. And so it was a childhood that I felt out of sorts. It was an uncomfortable childhood that turned into tumultuous teens. And then after serving in the Army, things sort of straightened out for me. But it wasn't easy acclimating to life in America as a young Jamaican person. The kids are relentless with teasing, and I understand that they still are.
Yeah.
They've got to cut that out.
Yeah.
But they were relentless with the teasing. So it wasn't an easy childhood for me. I was bullied initially, and then sadly then to overcome that, became a bully myself,
Oh,
right?
goodness, right.
And all of that.
Self-preservation.
You got it.
Yeah. Yeah. I can still see that fight in you.
Yeah. A little bit.
Yeah. I think that probably in some ways served you well, right?
Yes, yes.
So you went through your adolescence age, and after high school, what path did you choose? I know you mentioned the Army. Was that directly after high school, or was there something else in between?
It was about a year after high school, and so I was certainly not college material. In fact, I didn't take SATs, and I've never taken SATs. When I got out of the Army and went to nursing school at Pace, I was non-matriculated for the year because I had to maintain a B average because I hadn't taken SATs. But anyway, so the Army, after high school, I did some home health aid work and looked at my paycheck and thought, I'm not going to be able to survive on this. And for some reason, unbeknownst to me, I had taken the exam to go into the military. I guess a recruiter was on site at school, and I may have taken it, and they pursued me, and somehow I landed in the Army. It was about a year after graduating high school, and I graduated from White Plains High School. And during boot camp or basic training in the Army, it's basic training. It's the Marine Corps calls it boot camp. But you get to choose. It's like your wish list of where you'd like to be stationed. And just as a fluke, I put Hawaii first. Just like, okay, no one's sending me to Hawaii. And much to my surprise, that is where I landed, and that is where I was for the 3 years.
Wow. Well, thank you for your service.
Oh, you are welcome.
My stepson ended up going into Air Force. Yeah, so he kind of took a similar path where he didn't really want to pursue college, and really from a younger age was fascinated with the military, and took a long, hard look at it and decided that that was the path. So he did that for many years. So
please thank him for his service, and I have to tell you, and you should tell him, that of course and he knows this, that the Air Force is the creme de la creme of the military, right? So if there's a hierarchy, the Air Force is definitely at the top. They get better everything. In fact, in Hawaii, we would go over to Hickam Air Force Base just to get the food because it was so much better on the Air Force Base. So you have to score really high on the ASVAB examination to land in the Air Force, and so kudos to him.
Well, he didn't go to the warm spot of Hawaii. He went to Alaska.
Oh, dear.
And we were going to visit him, my husband and I. We had the trip all set, the plane tickets bought, and then the pandemic happened. Yeah, so I never got to do my trip to Hawaii, and by the time things started to settle down, he had switched to civilian life and had moved to Colorado. So,
wow.
Yeah.
You'll make it there. You will make it there. And I will make it back someday to visit.
Awesome. So in the time that you were in the military, were there specific learnings that maybe started to lend towards leadership that you were taking away from your experience there?
Interesting question. I'd say yes, absolutely. When I got out of the Army, I was a sergeant, and that automatically, just by nature of that rank, puts you in a leadership position. But I have to say that even during those turbulent teenage years, I have to say leadership, because a part of me believes that there are folks, you can teach some elements, some aspects of leadership, but there are people who are born to be leaders. And I say that, I promise you, in the most humble way. You know me well, and I am a humble person. But even during those tumultuous years, my mother would say, oh, it's your friends, they're influencing you. No, they're not influencing me. I am influencing them. And so it sort of presented early in life, and then certainly to your question, in the military, I happen to be very tall, right? I'm 6 feet tall, and that just by nature of stature, there's some leadership assumptions that gets built into that. And so, for example, in boot camp, they gave me to carry the flag, right? I was that person,
right?
Because of the height. So you see, leadership, it just sort of happens, and there are different things that occur in your life that cultivate that leadership. But So yes, in the military, and then of course they teach you all about leadership. You become the head of a squad, and so yeah, lots of leadership roles in the military.
Were you aspiring to be a sergeant? Did you see that as a path for yourself?
No, it's interesting. And I recently spoke at I was a commencement speaker at Mercer University a few months back. And the theme was, it's all predestined. Like your life is laid out for you. It's paved, right? And it's just, it was in the cards, you know, to put it simply. Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
I believe that. So, no, I didn't aspire to be a sergeant. I was just living a day at a time. And it was just there. That was what was intended.
So, how did you get into healthcare from being in the military?
Another good question, because I didn't work in healthcare.
Right.
I worked in supply. In fact, the Army has boats, so we sailed around to Hawaii. I was stationed on Oahu, and we'd go to the Big Island or Hawaii and Maui and all of the islands, bringing food and supplies to the troops who were out in the field, right? And so I didn't work in healthcare there, but my mom is a nursing assistant, and lots of West Indians during that time, I can't really speak for today, but a lot of them went into healthcare. So my mom was a nursing assistant, and she still is. 40 years she works at a children's hospital.
Wow.
And she still does to this day. Goes to work every day. And so I guess following in her footsteps, so I just decided I'd like to be a nurse. And she sort of, you know, encouraged me to do so. And I remember I wanted to do the 2-year degree, and she said, no, do the 4-year degree and get it done, because you'll have to go back for the bachelor. So just do it in one shot.
Smart.
Which is what I ended up doing. So basically, the long answer to your question is, the short answer to your question is, I guess I just emulated my mom, who's a nursing assistant.
Well, she must have been a great role model.
Oh, best role model, my number one role model.
Awesome. Yeah, that's awesome. So you decide to go to nursing school. How did you end up here at Westchester Community Health Center?
Right? I have to ask myself that 31 years later.
Wow.
How did I get here? So when I graduated nursing school, I worked for an agency, and they placed me at the then Greenberg Health Center, which is one of our 9 sites. And it was just, again, it was all laid out for me. They assigned me, and as an agency nurse, you'd come in temporarily, right? But it turned out to be a full-time commitment. There was just opportunity after opportunity that kept presenting itself. And because of the discipline that I learned at home, and that was cultivated further in the military, when I was very disciplined. So I can remember one year getting perfect attendance, because that's the military in me, you see? And so, yeah, I worked in every capacity. There were always opportunities. The director of the health center at that time retired, and they were like, we think you'd be a good director. And I said, well, let's see, you know? Yeah, and the same thing with being the CEO. It's been 6 years that I've been the CEO of this amazing organization. The CEO and founder, Carol Morris, she retired, and there was an opportunity. So I feel like it's all predestined, Michelle.
Wow. And when you were a nurse, what was your specialty?
Everything, right? So primary care is what we do here at the health center. So preventative care. So what does that mean? That means preventing illness, right? So lots of vaccinations in pediatrics, you know, prenatal care in OBGYN, testing for screening. I don't have to tell you this. You know better than anyone what happens in the OBGYN department. It's all preventative stuff that's going on. Internal medicine, where we care for our most chronically ill patients. Primary care is my thing. Most nurses many nurses believe that you have to have that hospital experience. I have to tell you, I have a very weak stomach. I am that nurse with a very weak stomach, and so hospital nursing wasn't for me. And so my career has been primary care, and I love it.
Wow. Yeah, my grandmother was an OR nurse. Yeah. I wouldn't be able to do that because even though I work for a company where we have to have blood drawn to run the test, I am terrified of needles. So how I ended up here with a test that does exactly what I can't watch is crazy. Yeah, so I get it.
You see? So your grandmother would be what's considered a real nurse. So hospitals, right? Even though we're all RNs, hospital nurses, like OR nurses, emergency room nurses, ICU, those are real nurses.
She'll tell you that too.
See? So you know.
Great. So tell me what steps brought you to CEO? So you said you were here, the opportunities presented themselves. Like, what did that look like? Because I know as being a person of color and then being a woman of a person of color, those opportunities aren't always readily available to us. So how did that come about for you?
It's interesting, and I'll start by saying this. So as I shared, my teenage years were tumultuous, and so when I completed my enlistment on active duty, my mother, and I went to nursing school. I thought about a community college. The waiting list was lengthy because of the tuition was obviously much less than PACE, right? And my mother said, no, let's get to PACE before you change your mind, because historically that had been me, the way that I operated. So she said, let's get you into PACE. So after I graduated, and this opportunity became available, she had some concerns, right? Minority-run organization, lots of minority folks around, and she'll tell you she had some concerns about that. But again, my path was paved and it was laid out, and this is where I would be. And I'm not certain if I was in another organization, if I would have advanced the way in which I did within this organization. We had an African-American woman CEO who felt very strongly about ensuring that there were opportunities for others who looked like her. And so here we are. Now, in terms of the opportunities that presented themselves and the advancement of it all, so I started as an LPN. I struggled with my RN. I passed my LPN boards on the first try. When you're in a 4-year program, you get to take your LPN boards 2 years in. Passed them, no problem. Awesome. When it came to graduation and passing the RNs, I passed on the 3rd try. And I talk about that because I need people to understand that failure comes with life. It isn't easy, but I'm sure we'll get to that in a bit. But so I worked as an LPN for the health center, going, department by department, giving shots, chaperoning an OB, all of that jazz. And then there became opportunities such as, the nurse, and then eventually I would pass my RN board, so then there would be nurse in charge of a department, right? Nursing supervisor. Then there would come opportunities to become a director of nursing, so then there was that. And then, as I said, the director of the then Greenberg Health Center, which was comprised of 4 of our 9 sites, she retired. So then there was executive director of those 4 sites. And then the CEO retired, right? You get it?
Yeah.
There was COO, because the COO was advanced to CEO. So then there was COO. And then she separated. And then there was an opportunity for CEO. And just by suiting up and showing up and doing the right thing is what I tell people, and never saying no to anything. When an opportunity presents itself, perhaps you're that person that gets selected.
And what do you think it was about you because I'm sure there was other candidates, right? What do you think it was about you? What did you bring to the table that allowed for that progression to happen?
I think it's institutional knowledge that I brought. I think it's work ethic, and I think it's buy-in from the staff and the stakeholders, internal and external stakeholders. It's reputation. I am a very stern leader. No surprise. I like to be transparent 100%. I wasn't always that way as a child. Like I said, a kid, I had lots of issues. But as an adult, I feel very strongly about transparency. And so I think all of those things, work ethic, that you bring to the situation, people notice that.
Yeah. And throughout your journey coming through the ranks, have you ever experienced being the only one in the room, or, you know, unconscious bias or a microaggression that may have, you know, maybe almost try to pivot you off of your game?
All day, every day. All day, every day. I sit on, I think it's 13 boards now, including a hospital. And so oftentimes I am the only one in the room. You know, we go to lots of meetings. I don't have to tell you. I know you walk into a room and you're the only one oftentimes. So we live in Westchester County. This is what it is, right? We travel in these circles professionally, right? And otherwise, but mostly professionally, travel in these circles where you're the only one. And I just have to draw from what's been instilled from mentors and otherwise, and that, Judith, when you walk into a room, just because folks don't look like you doesn't mean that they're smarter than you. Okay? Doesn't mean that they're smarter than you. You remember that. You're not the dumbest person in the room. Who knows? You may not be the smartest person in the room, but don't walk into every room thinking that because there's no one in there that looks like you, that you're the dumbest person in the room. You know, humility at all times. I think that humility is so important. I think it's so important to be humble, because I think sometimes we get caught into that, right? We know that we live in a world where there is built-in biases, right? And good people. There are good people on all sides who want to do the right thing. But it's the infrastructure. It's the way that it's set up. It's baked in. It's baked in. So we have to decide how we want to navigate it. There are different approaches to it, right? Some people choose to be aggressive and assertive, and, you know, unfortunately sometimes even inappropriate, which is off-putting. I choose humility. You know, I choose humility, and I choose to be stern. If something doesn't make me feel comfortable, I have no problem telling you that you're making me feel uncomfortable right now. And I feel grateful that I'm in a position where I can do so, and I recognize that not everyone is in that position. But I certainly feel very comfortable letting people know if they're making me feel uncomfortable.
Right. It sounds like a way to be your authentic self.
Right.
But still be, I don't want to say complicit, because that's not the right word, but understanding, right? And I almost feel like sometimes I can lead a little into like code switching, right? Where you're kind of flexing to meet somebody halfway so that they're listening to your words and not your tone, right? And I know, you know, a lot of times as minority women, we tend to kind of do that. My sister used to call it, like, I'd have my phone voice and then I'd have my friend voice, right? That's the one that's like, hello, this is Michelle speaking. Oh, girl, what's going on? Right? And then everybody understands that, you know, sometimes we have to flex between, like, the way we speak to our friends and the way we speak to in a corporate setting to be able to be looked at as equal, right? So keeping with that, and
before you move on, I have to just say this to your point regarding your sister. One of the things that I get a lot is there are folks who don't look like me who will try to talk jive to me.
Oh, yeah.
and I don't take offense to it.
Yes.
Because some people do. I don't take offense to it. In fact, in a way, I think it's endearing that they're seeking to make me feel comfortable and also make themselves feel comfortable. But I get that a lot, and of course, I can speak that way.
Right.
Of course, I can speak that way. But that's not necessarily the way that I am speaking in certain circles. So when you come to me, and I get that a lot, and again, I think it's an uncomfortability thing with the person who's doing it.
Yeah, and trying to make you feel like you fit in, right? Because a lot of times we don't fit in.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
That's a great point.
You made me think of it when you shared about your sister.
Yeah. So in keeping with that, and I want to make sure that I'm not forgetting some of the questions, so I'm going to bring this back here. During COVID, I was in awe of how you fearlessly led this organization through such uncertain times. You inspired me to do what I could do to help, and that resulted in I got Natera to donate money to the clinic.
Thank you.
Oh, you did an amazing job. You were always in the news, and I kept on sending you articles. I'm like, look, you're in the news again, like you didn't know, right?
I appreciated everyone. I appreciated every email.
And looking back, like, were there any leadership lessons that you learned from that crisis?
First of all, thank you so much to you and Natera for all of your support during that time. You will never know what some of those emails mean. It could have been just you sending me an email, but many of those emails were on days when I needed some words of encouragement and some reminders that, Judith, you're good here. Keep doing what you're doing. And of course, we always love to get funding, right? So thank you and Natera very much for that.
Of course.
Of course, I've gone on a tangent. The question was?
The question was, what leadership lessons did you learn from that crisis? Because you managed a lot.
Yeah.
I was watching you manage vaccinations and setting up stations and making sure that you had equipment. And I mean, you literally were just being pulled in so many different directions. So what are some of those leadership lessons you took from that?
Yes, you just brought me way back to that time. It's that and I don't want to use the word because it's almost starting to sound cliche, but it's resilience, really. That we have this resilience and we have this built-in ability to adjust and adapt to any situation, lacking sleep, that was a big thing that we can, as leaders, we can actually function with very little sleep and a whole lot of stress. But leading by example, I think was one of the things that was very important. I've always felt strongly about that, but I feel like during that time, it was so important for the team to understand that you're with them on the ground. I can remember one day my team was exhausted and we had a immunization deal, and I said, you guys stay home. I'll do it myself, and I brought an assistant with me. She documented in the computer, and I just gave about 400 vaccines myself that day, and I enjoyed it so much. I missed that part of nursing. I do. I miss my nursing. But anyway, I digress. So yeah, like leading by example is very important because there's going to come that day when you're going to need to tap into that, right? So that's one sort of thing that I learned. And that people need leadership. Like someone has to lead.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And the other thing that I learned is not everyone wants to lead. Some people are happy to just come and do what they need to do. And that was during COVID, and that's always. Some people are just happy and content with coming and doing their job, doing a great job, and going home. Leadership isn't for everyone, And I learned that, I'm pretty good at this.
Yeah.
I learned that.
You are pretty good at this.
Thank you. Yeah.
Awesome.
And I like it a lot.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So who inspires you now? Because you talked about people that inspired you. You talked about mentors that you turn to. So who do you lean on now?
Yeah, always first and foremost my mom. That's my rock. I am not married, although I am in a relationship, so I lean on him too. But my mom is my rock. The patients, the staff, I get inspiration from them. The patients, staff, community, I get inspiration from them. We had for example, we had our golf outing Monday, 2 days ago, and it rained. Well, guess what? We had over 100 golfers come out anyway. And of course, golfers say it never rains on the golf course. I get it. And they came and they stayed. And you saw the way that it rained. There were 200 people who came out in the rain and who stayed, right? From a day of golfing to be there for this organization because the work is so important. So I get my inspiration from the patients, from our supporters, from our elected officials who are doing everything in their power to make sure that we stay afloat. So I draw it from so many places, from people like you who have a passion for ensuring that this work gets elevated and that folks who are in positions like myself get recognized, and just all over the place in response to your question.
And in those times where, because you've talked about, there's those times where you're not getting a lot of sleep, you're being pulled in different directions, there's, you have to draw that last part of energy. What do you do for self-help?
So, I am a woman of faith. I recognize and appreciate and accept the fact that there are folks who are atheists, agnostics, folks who are spiritual, right? I happen to be someone who believes in a higher power that's greater than myself, who I choose to call God. And that is where my strength is drawn from. In fact, just driving in this morning, because I meditate, right? Every morning I'm on my knees and I'm praying and I'm meditating. Sometimes I'm trying to meditate, but I'm thinking about my plan for the day. I have to meet Michelle this morning. I have to pray. But I draw my inspiration from a power that's greater than myself. As I said, I am not married. I don't have children. And so I feel strongly that God has a purpose for me. And that purpose is to run this organization and to ensure that this organization is here for generations to come. So that is who I tap into, and I say, okay, what is it that you want from me today? Or, you know what, I'm absolutely exhausted, and I just shut it down and just sleep, right? Sleep and water, the two things that you can do, the two most important things you can do for yourself: sleep and water, and of course exercise, which I know is a passion of yours. And I am a jogger, so when I can, I jog. That's my thing, with the music blaring in the ears.
What's playing in the ears?
Oh, all things rap, I have to tell you. Lots of rap music.
Important question. Kendrick or Drake?
Ooh. Oh, dear. I can say I wouldn't want to be Drake.
Right?
I feel bad for him, actually.
I do feel bad, but, you poke the bear.
Yeah, I think lesson learned. Check that box. Don't poke the bear. But I always think about the human being, and I think how that must feel. I know if someone says something mean about me, how I feel, much less.
Right.
God bless them.
Yeah. But it makes for interesting stories.
Indeed.
I think I went back and forth looking at all the different lyrics. I was like, ooh, oh.
Ooh,
yeah, it was lyrics.
Right.
So, you've been a CEO for over 6 years now. How has the role changed or evolved over the past 6 years?
That's a great question. Initially, it was, I've been here for so long, I know where all the bodies are buried, I know what all the problems are, and I'm going to fix all of them, right? Over the past 6 years, though, you learn that there are some low-hanging fruit things that you can change immediately, but others will take time. And so that was a big lesson for me, because I like to fix it right away. I like instant gratification. I want it fixed. I want it done this way. I want it done now. Right? But I learned that no, there's some things that are going to take much longer. I think that's the biggest lesson. And then the second would be the pandemic that you already brought up. And then now what we're facing. What we're facing currently in terms of the cuts to Medicaid, the big beautiful bill and the cuts to Medicaid. And, we're concerned, we're afraid, like everyone else. Health centers stand to lose the most, and I know this isn't about the big beautiful bill, but so I've learned that, I have to adapt, right? Think out of the box, and be patient.
Yeah. Has it changed your language at all when you're talking to others? So, for example, I know that some people feel that saying the word equity is now taboo, and stay away from words DEI. Like, have you changed your language in talking?
I absolutely have. That's the honest answer, and I know that there are some who may take issue with that, but I believe in living to see another day, or living to fight another day. And I think that when situations occur, you have to sort of live in the moment with those situations, and sort of figure out the lay of the land and what's going to happen, and be patient. and acquiesce in some instances. As a leader, you have to learn that, and you have to be humble enough to recognize that sometimes you're going to have to acquiesce until timing is everything, right? Mm-hmm. And all things eventually get worked out, but there's a time to be quiet, and there's a time to be still. And right now is a time to be still. And so, in response to your question, yes, I have changed. I have changed. I may not be. We're living DEI here at Westchester Community Health Center. We're a very diverse organization with folks who look like me, folks who look like you. We have a hodgepodge of cultures representatives here, nationalities represented here at the health center, and so we feel like we're living DEI. Mm-hmm. But yes, I'm selective in my words.
Do you see that changing in the future, or do you feel that like a certain population or a certain time will have to change to bring those words back to being okay to say again? I'm trying to think of a way to say it, right? Because if we're allowing such important words and such important work to not be spoken, how do we bring that back? And not that you have the answer, but I'm just thinking out loud, like, how do we bring that back to normalcy?
Right. Michelle, I wish and I love and I fancy myself as always having an answer to something, but these are uncertain times. Things have changed, mm-hmm. significantly so, and no one really knows when the time will come where we're able to bring those words and those activities back in a way, in the direction that we were heading in. It just mm-hmm. breaks my heart. Every single morning I wake up with a broken heart that we've just now set ourselves back decades and decades. Mm-hmm. And I have to wonder if we'll live to see it changed. Mm-hmm. That's the way that I feel. But that said, don't take that to mean that we're not gonna, stay the course mm-hmm. and continue to do what it is that we do mm-hmm. and deal with these hurdles as they come. And I can tell you they're coming fast and furious, and they're coming daily.
Mm. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hurts my heart. Yeah. It really does. So, what advice would you give to current leaders, especially those in healthcare, on staying grounded, ethical, and community focused?
Do just that. Mm. That's what it is. I think as a society we sometimes overcomplicate things, and I think a part of me says that there are a number of reasons that are too numerous to know why I feel that way. But we as a society tend to complicate things. I think we need to do just that. Mm-hmm. We need to stay transparent. We need to stay the course. Period.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And addressing those in leadership positions who may not understand their privilege, whatever that looks like, what actions can they take to help undress unconscious bias and intentionally uplift underrepresented voices in the workplace?
Mm-hmm. I think that we need to educate ourselves. First of all, I think we need to do self-assessments, right? Because we too have internal
Absolutely.
Biases.
Mm-hmm.
So we need to check ourselves first, mm-hmm. right? We need to assess ourselves first. And then we need to educate ourselves, right? We need to educate ourselves. And then we need to educate others, similar to what you're doing. And thank you for that work, as I said. So we need to do that. We need to assemble allies, right? And there are different ways to go about doing that. Recognize that no one person or no one group can do anything, mm-hmm. right? We've got to have allies all around us to achieve our goals, especially as it relates to our DEI goals. You or I alone can't do this, right? We need everyone within these organizations to come together to make it a priority, right? And to get it all done. So yeah, self-assessment first, with everything.
And being in an executive role, time is so limited. So a lot of times, things like self-assessments, taking on learnings, education, kind of gets put on the back burner. So how do we not let that happen? How do we find that time?
Okay, are you ready? So when you make a decision to serve in a leadership role, you had better know that you're going to give up some things, right? Mm-hmm. And I take my cap off to all of those married moms who are working. You know, my mom was that person, you know, she worked because she had to feed us, you know. Mm-hmm. But you had better know that if you're in a leadership position, and it isn't for everyone, you're going to have to make time to check all of those boxes, Michelle, and to do all of those things that are required. And I think many people in leadership positions will share with you that you're gonna have to, you know, there gonna have to be some give and take. You're gonna have to make a lot of sacrifice. You're gonna miss some things. Mm-hmm. You're gonna lose a lot of sleep. A lot of people choose not to go into leadership, and sometimes I think, boy, I wonder what that would be like, just to come do my job and go home. And you know, some days I'm overwhelmed. I'm like, I wish I could do that, you know. But you have to know that leadership isn't these leadership positions and executive positions in particular. You take it with you. Mm-hmm. You know, there are folks I know who turn off emails and turn off this and turn off that when they're on vacation and all of this. You have to make the choice, right? So self-care, self-preservation, yes, absolutely. But for me, for example, if I am away, and I get approximately 300 emails every day. So am I going to turn those emails off and have to deal with 300 a day times 5 days when I get back? No, I think I'll find some time during each of those days to address, you know, and, you know, share, you know, forward some of those emails to different folks to address. But you make a lot of sacrifice. So, and recognize that and embrace that. Yeah. Otherwise, you're going to be one very unhappy leader.
Right. And with doing that, I mean, how do you fit in, like, you know, we were talking about self-help, relaxation, education, doing what would be considered extracurricular to some, you know? It's like making that commitment, right? And
well, you learn to say no to some things, like some of those commitments that you have, evenings and weekends, you know, and you learn to delegate some of it out to others, as I've done recently. Like I call them my ride or die team. Mm-hmm. I send them out to events that I can't make it to. I get invited to amazing events sometimes that I can't attend. So you do that. So you delegate some of it out. You structure your day in a way that allows for that, right? So for example, today, right? So I'm with you this morning. I have 5 or 6 meetings today. I have a board meeting this evening, right? I make my own, so I come in early, right? So I'm an early starter. So I'm here at 6 a.m. So between 6 and 9, typically, I will get organized for the day. Like I'll do any emails that I didn't get to yesterday, lay out everything I need for my day. So it's planning and organizing and preparing. And the last thing, Michelle, is this. No one's going to agree with this, but this is what I do. And it saves my sanity. I schedule my own meeting. Just not having that middle person to go to about meetings and move this that way and put this one here and only 6 as opposed to 15 and just eliminating that. I don't put them on the Outlook calendar. That my assistant will do for me, but I schedule my own meetings, and in a way that keeps me in control and it decreases my stress in a way that is hard to explain to you. When I speak to colleagues, their assistant is out, they can't function. No, I'm not that person.
It's an interesting take.
Uh-huh.
Because you would think that you're actually, by delegating, you're relieving some of that stress. And for you, it's opposite.
Complete and utter.
Good tip to know. Awesome. So just two more questions. What does building the table mean to you in the context of equitable leadership?
When an opportunity presents itself that you can bring someone along, that is what you do. It is as simple as that. And I shared about this in the commencement speech. You've got to ensure, it is your job. You are employed to ensure that when you're building this table, you ensure that you're bringing along people who look like you. That comes with the privilege of these positions that are bestowed on leaders. Is you bring folks along, women, all races, any disabled, everywhere, and there are lots of opportunities in a day that you can create for folks who otherwise would not have the opportunity. My CEO was passionate about that, and it is my duty to ensure that continues.
Do you feel, I know I said two more questions, but you just made me think of another one. So how do you address the thought pattern of, well, we already have leadership at a company, take whatever company. And so if I'm purposely trying to hire someone that doesn't look like me, doesn't come from the same background, that may mean that I have to let someone go or get rid of somebody in order to make space for somebody else. Like, how do you address a feeling like that? Because I see that happening in so many corporations.
So there will always be opportunities to employ folks who may otherwise not have opportunities to join your organization. So I may be misunderstanding your question. If you could restate it.
Yeah, so many times when companies are being looked at of how diverse is your company and how diverse is your leadership. And as companies grow, they tend to hire people that they know, they've worked with, they brought along from other, places. And so a lot of times the thought pattern is, well, if we are going to intentionally bring in people that aren't like us, that don't think like us, that don't look like us, that means I have to make a space for that person. And in order to do that, the thought tends to be, well, then who do we have to let go to make space for this person to come in? How do we change that mindset, and how do we make room?
You know what? We just have to recognize that we will have to do that. We will have to make space if we're serious about this. And I think the best practices are out there in terms of when you bring in diverse folks and give them a seat at the table, you're going to get a perspective that you otherwise wouldn't have. You're going to get some skill sets that you probably didn't even know existed, right? And yes, absolutely, there may also be some deficiencies there that you're going to have to account for and make up for in other ways. It isn't easy, right? It isn't easy. So I would say that folks have to be convinced that we've got to do whatever we've got to do to ensure that voice is at the table. And as I said to you, Michelle, I sit on 14 boards, and I do so because yes, I don't want to say I have a lot of free time, but because I don't have the obligation of children and such, I may have a little bit more time than the average person. So that I'm able to do that, and I'm a bit of a workaholic.
You really? No,
I'm
go on.
a bit of a workaholic, but it's hard for me to say no on consequential boards when I know that my voice doesn't exist. You see, one board that I sit on, all this board does is give away money, millions and millions of dollars of money. Well, there's an opportunity for me to ensure that folks who look like me, an organization that look like ours, gets their fair share. I couldn't say no to that. And by the way, it was an African-American gentleman whose term was ending, and he called me and he said, Judith, I need you on this board. Do you see?
He carved that path.
You got it? And
Yeah.
so it is my job to ensure that when my term ends, I do the same. But whether it be an educational institution, other healthcare institution, community-based organization institutions, where I feel that our voice, my voice, right, is not at the table, I feel compelled to ensure that my voice is at the table. And I have to tell you, on each and every one of these boards, they welcome it, they crave it. Judith, what do you think? You know? And that makes me feel good. That makes me feel like I'm actually being of service to my community, not just that particular board, but the voice is at the table. Can't say enough about that.
And that's so important because it can easily turn into tokenism.
Right. Oh, never that.
Yeah.
Never that. Don't ask me to be on your board if that's the case.
Right. Just to say, hey, look at our diverse board.
Right.
Yeah. So my very, very last thing for you is I want you to address adolescent Judith and give adolescent Judith the advice of what to expect throughout life and what she's going to become.
Love that question. So first is, and I did get this a little thought, because you get asked that question a lot. So the first is pay attention to math. Pay attention to math, Judith.
Not my strongest subject.
You see? Because I feel like if you miss a step throughout those years, you're lost, and then it's fear. It's an area of weakness for me, I have to tell you that. And I'd love for it to become an area of strength, and I'm working on that. So pay attention to math is a big thing. Personally, that boy that you like, not so much. You wouldn't even consider him. Okay, I don't care how cute you think he is today. That's another thing. Okay. And the other thing is that it's going to be okay, and it's going to be rough. It's going to be rough, but you have to go through that. You have to go through that because you're building strength that you will need to get you through each chapter. So try to embrace it. Know that it hurts, and it's going to have to hurt. You need it. You're going to need it. You're going to need it. Yeah. It's all gonna be okay. It's all gonna be okay. It's predestined. It's laid out for you. Suit up and show up. Every chapter is laid out for you. All you have to do is just suit up and show up, and be a person of integrity. Right? Again, teenage years tumultuous, lacked integrity, in fact. But adult years, it's the cornerstone of my existence is integrity. It means everything to me.
Yeah. And you can see that. It shows.
Thank you.
It really does.
Thank you.
Is there anything I didn't ask that you would want to say?
I think we've covered it. I think you've covered it. You've had excellent questions.
Thank you.
And it's been very engaging, and you're just amazing. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
For all that
From
you do.
the bottom of my heart, for real.
Yes.
So, Judith Watson, CEO. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to having more conversations with you in the future.
Likewise.
Awesome.
Thanks, Michelle.
Thank you.